We want to bring in now our Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired four-star General Jack Keane, joining us now here in the studio. General, that remarkable press conference, the tactics used, the deception, and the fact that we got in flawlessly, struck our targets, as according to Secretary Haig said, the peers we hit every intended target objective, and yet got out without a single shot being fired at us.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we got a congratulations to our troops in that execution, and the complexity of that operation is obvious. And also, let's commend the President of the United States. He showed enormous strategic patience in trying to work this with the Iranians so that they would dismantle their nuclear enterprise. But at the end of the day, we had to help the Israelis dismantle it. That's the facts on the ground. I think the operation had four major characteristics of it to help it be successful. One was the operational security of the operation. And that is really tough to maintain in our open, democratic society that we have. And we know that things do have a tendency to leak out.
Everything leaks in Washington.
And then everybody, listen, for the last week or two has been focused on this operation, and yet it didn't leak. The deception helped considerably in that, in terms of the missile. I mean, the planes flying initially west, but the actual planes flew east to the target. I think the president contributed to the deception operation as well when he said, well, I'm going to make a decision in a couple of weeks. The truth of the matter was the decision was already made or made very close to that statement he made. And everybody was thinking there was time here. And then characteristic of military operations, when we're going after something that we have to destroy, to ensure that we use overwhelming force. And you saw that. Most everyone was saying 2 to 3 of these MOPs were going to be used, 14.
Yeah.
Multiple aircraft to deliver all of those, and then the additional missiles, and taking down 3 targets that the Israelis wanted help on, not just one. And then the thing that was emphasized is the flawless execution. And I think the audience had a complexity, got a feel for the complexity of military operations. And I really applaud the chairman for providing those details. And I want to tell you, what you folks have been doing here on Fox and Friends Weekend since this got started about 3 or 4 hours ago is really outstanding. Well done. Well,
thank you, General. And having you here is so beneficial because you understand these. And I think the real question, General, is, okay, so what now are the strategic implications of this strike? We obviously didn't get much BDA, battle damage assessment, from the Pentagon briefing. It's going to take some time. We'll learn that. But just initially, what do you see as the strategic implications?
That's a great question. It's pretty significant opportunity, actually. Obviously, the threat of nuclear weapons being used against Israel, the United States, as Iran has threatened, or Europe, which would clearly be in range of their ballistic missiles, that is about off the table. The second thing is, and this is serious, no nuclear arms race in the Middle East as a result of Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon, which would have happened. The Arabs are not going to say this publicly, but they are relieved about what has just happened here. And the other thing is, we are on the cusp of actually ending Iran's malign and aggressive behavior in the region, Griff, that has existed for 45 years. And you have outlined the killing of Americans from 1983 all the way up to the 350 attacks that Iran delivered on U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria during the 4 years of the Biden administration, and not one time did they ever accept General Kurilla's recommendation to strike Iran to stop that from happening. And so the implications here are very serious in terms of the opportunities for peace and stability. Iran is isolated in a way that we've never seen in the 45 years. The proxies have not supported them at all. Think of that. Iran is on its heels. Their very survival is in question as a regime and as a military organization, as the IRGC controlling the proxies and supporting the region. All of that is on the table. None of them have come into their assistance. The Hezbollah was organized principally to defend Iran against an attack from Israel. Billions of dollars spent on them, 150,000 missiles. I've talked to the Israelis and said, what is going on with Hezbollah? Why haven't they fired? Do they have any missiles? Yes. Answer, they have thousands of missiles left. Why haven't they? He said, sir, their will is broken.
Wow.
And they can see what is happening to Iran. Why are they going to risk all now? The Israelis will come back at them when they believe Iran is close to being finished.
You know,
And then the isolation. Where is Russia and China, Griff?
yeah.
This axis has been formed. Those four nations, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. Where are they? They have provided no military assistance to Iran whatsoever. Huge opportunity here to move forward and take advantage of it in terms of peace and stability in the region.
Well, and, you know, you mentioned Russia and China. You know, the Wall Street Journal has an editorial early this morning, Mr. Trump meets the moment. And it's really talking about American deterrence being back. And, you know, you saw the greatest military the world's ever seen on display flawlessly in the last 24 hours. What message does that send? Is America once again a global leader in terms of deterrence?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when President Trump came back into office, the major geopolitical change that he was coping with, and it is China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea forming an alliance together to cooperate because they saw opportunity. They believed that American leadership under the former president was weak, and they could take advantage of that weakness. It's not isolated that Putin went into Ukraine. It's not isolated that Iran operationalizes all of its proxies to once and for all go after Israel and bring that country down. And President Xi is preparing for war, and he keeps threatening war. And during those previous 4 years, the intimidation and coercion on his part in the Pacific has accelerated dramatically. This operation by itself, even though it's limited in terms of what we are doing and certainly limited in terms of what our geopolitical objectives here. We're not going to invade Iran. We're not going to occupy it. We're certainly not going to do any nation building. We just want them to stop. And I think we'll achieve that. What a message this sends to our allies and partners around the world, certainly the Arabs in the region, but also Taiwan, the Europeans, et cetera, watching this. What really are they seeing? They're seeing the President of the United States come to the assistance of a partner and ally who needs our help and who is being challenged in their very existence. And the United States has their back and has stepped up and used force. That is what is being seen. Our adversaries see, and you said it, the return of American global leadership in a way that they can no longer take advantage of like they have been doing for the past 4 years. And they've been getting away with it, and we all have seen it. So this is a step in the right direction. I mean, it's not a fait accompli in that sense,
right,
but they will change their assessments as a result. I believe when President Trump got elected, they had to rethink what's going to happen here in terms of what we have on the table and what are our objectives. Now they have to make another assessment based on the fact that President Trump has used force to eliminate a nuclear threat to Israel, to the region, to the world writ large, and they are on notice as a result of it.
On notice. General, let me ask you really now, as we wait to see if Iran will strike, will they hit one of our bases, al-Assad in Iraq? Will they go after Bahrain? What do you anticipate will be the response?
We don't know. So it's their choice to make. But I'm confident the message that has been delivered to Iran that we are conducting a limited one-off airstrike in support of Israel's operation. We are not going to war with you. If you retaliate against us and hurt people at our bases or our capabilities at those bases, then you're going to have to deal with massive consequences as a result of that action. I believe based on where Iran is, and they're so much back on their heels, their military leadership has been decapitated. Their civilian leadership is in hiding, buried under the ground, and the psychological and emotional impact that would have on that person in terms of what is happening to them and what they're used to having in their normal everyday life will take its toll. I think they will recognize that they cannot afford to do what people are suggesting, a massive strike on the United States, which would result in our significant, overwhelming response. And that would put their regime's survival at risk, not in terms of us bringing down the regime, but in terms of them being so politically weakened as a result of everything they care about being destroyed, that people will look for opportunities to take that regime over.
Well, and obviously we saw Iran responded after we took out Soleimani. So we can expect maybe something will come. But, you know, I'll tell you, General, I spent weeks, months over the last 4 years out in places like the San Diego sector. I encountered English-speaking Iranians, Syrians. My colleague Bill Maluja and I did too. I now am talking to some DHS sources, worrying about, you know, is there a threat of a cell or someone being activated, or even a smaller, individualized, motivated person to try and strike us here at home?
Yeah. The FBI has some concerns about that, and obviously Senator Cotton, who's the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, has mentioned that. So I'm assuming that that threat is real. But I also have a lot of confidence in our counterintelligence capability. One, the fact that they're recognizing that threat does exist means that they're onto something. And the fact that they revealed it to the American people was interesting in of itself. So I have confidence in that system. And hopefully that they'll be able to prevent anything like that from happening. I think the more realistic thing that would happen is some kind of missile retaliation by the Iranians.
Yeah, and we probably can expect that. I want to bring you back to that just a little bit because, you know, General, there's so much of discussion in this about, well, there is legitimate questions and concerns of being drawn into something else. And remember of what happened to Iraq and in Afghanistan. But it seems to me that the intelligence this time is clear, and it's against an enemy. You're dealing with an enemy who is the undisputed #1 global, you know, terrorist on the globe. And so they've been chanting, as we've pointed out, for 4.5 decades, death to America and killing Americans. But now we have the IAEA intelligence. It came out in this May 31 report where, for the first time in 20 years, inspectors still in Iran under the non-nuclear proliferation treaty. Remember, JCPOA went away, but the inspectors did stay. On their limited knowledge, they say that we had literally enrichment happening up to, well, here's what they say. They say the fact that Iran is the only non-nuclear weapon state in the world that is producing and accumulating uranium enriched to 60% remains a serious concern. For our viewers, 20% is what you need perhaps for energy. 60% is a short distance from the 90% weapons grade. And they end the report this way, General. Unless and until Iran assists the agency in resolving the outstanding issues, the agency will not be in a position to provide assurance that Iran's nuclear program is exclusively peaceful. It seems that that's going to be a part of what woke us up about it.
Well, I think that, and Israel's intelligence as well. I think some of the statements that came out of our intelligence services about they haven't made a decision is absolutely ludicrous. You know, based on the fact that they also would make that they're 2 weeks from being able to assemble the enough enriched uranium to weaponize it and make it into a weapon. Well, haven't they already made a decision to do that? And so I totally discount the conclusion that a decision hasn't been made, because if they made the decision today, 2 weeks from now, they would have what they wanted. And we wouldn't even notice it. It would be the same thing that happened in North Korea when they did it. Going back to the escalation thing, and I know some of your colleagues are concerned about this, when a president is considering what he did here today, and he knows that the enemy has a vote, and that they can come back and escalate as a result of it, and then our leaders walk the president through the options that we have based on size, scale, and impact of the enemy's escalation. And we have options. And we walk him through all of that. And obviously, there can be a walk up the escalation ladder, which is the concern that people have. But you have to ask this fundamental question. Obama and Biden were both paralyzed by the fear of adverse consequence, the fear of escalation and what it would imply. And it paralyzed them. This president has not paralyzed them. And the reason is, he'll ask the next question when they take him through the escalation. Well, what is the impact of us doing nothing? Take me through what is the impact of doing nothing? And that is what leads you to overcome your fear, which is a natural human experience when you're dealing with these and you're president of the United States and you have people's lives at risk, literally based on your decision here. But when you ask that question and you get the response and the danger it meant to Israel, the danger to the American people writ large, and the danger it meant to the Europeans, our soldiers are in uniform and we're expecting them to take risks. They have come forward and put their life on the line to defend this country. They are a small population representing the strong values that we have. And we are asking them to accept that risk so we can protect the American people and the state of Israel. And they will willingly accept that risk.
And our appreciation and admiration for those pilots and those sailors and everybody out there in this operation. General Jack Keane, insightful and great as always to give us some perspective here. Thank you.
Great talking to you, Griff.
Thank you, General.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.